Today is July 2nd, 2024, and I'm here with Fred Reeder, who was a coach and general manager for the Pekin Letts. Thank you so much for being here today.
Well, Addie, I am very happy to be here and very happy to be involved in your project, presentation, whatever. It turns out that I am what you would call a Pekin lifer. I was born and raised in Bartonville, but we drifted over to Pekin when I was 6 years old. I went to Pekin schools all my years, and I graduated from Pekin High, went away to graduate school, and at one time back in about 1963, the Pekin High Pekin High School administration found me on the U of I teaching roles that I was able to teach chemistry. So they brought me back to teach chemistry in 1963. And actually, it was a great opportunity because they gave me a life job that I really probably was destined to take anyway. And ended up being a coach in 5 different sports at Pekin High, 2 of which were girls' sports. And so it was kind of a natural thing for me just to move into the Letts program.
That's awesome. So can you maybe talk a little bit more about how you first became involved with the Pekin Letts?
I would be so happy to. Not necessarily for many reasons. The main reason was this. You know, there was the mayor of Pekin in 1991. His name was Willard Birkmeyer. Willard knew that I was the high school softball coach, and he knew that I had been actively involved in sports all those years. And he came to me because he knew that the Letts program had been mishandled for the last couple of years, and they were kind of hopelessly in debt. And they owed a sporting goods store in Peoria money that needed to be paid. Well, Willard was he was kind of on the board of trustees. They had a board at that time, and he was chairman of the board. So naturally, he had to find somebody, and he came to me and asked me if I would take over the program, and I said yes.
That's awesome. And then how many years were you a part of the team?
Well, let's see, I began in 1991, so going to now, it would be 63 years?
Yeah, it's been a while, for sure.
It's been a while, yes,
yeah.
It has.
And then, obviously, you started coaching here. Can you maybe describe your first experience coaching the team?
Yeah, I could, because, you know, Willard came to me, this was in the season of 1991, and the season was kind of halfway over. And so, and when you try to get a team, you have to start normally at the start of the year, like the colleges do too. You can't just all of a sudden get a team a week before the games would start. And so the team was in jeopardy of folding up when he came to me. Mm-hmm. And so what I did was I had the ability to contact enough players to put a team on the field. And so I was able to get about 12 players so we could actually start the season. And we did that in 1991.
Would you say that you had a successful first year coaching?
Yeah, we did. In fact, we probably had a good season. We won 3 and lost 1. That's percentage-wise, that's the best season they ever had. Oh. That's a 750 percentage. So probably if we could have kept that record all the way through, we'd have lived with that.
And then how would you describe your coaching philosophy that you had throughout the years? Did it change at all? Did you keep it the same?
It changed from the standpoint that when you had mature players, which the Pekin Letts were they were older women and they were mature. It was much more mature than the high school level was. In the high school level, a person needs to be more of a director, almost like the rule that the state of Illinois uses. You are infitu parentis, I think. I didn't get the Latin right, but it means you're the citizen parent. So you have to be much more directive of them. But there with these mature women, you didn't really need to be so much push. They could take it on their own. And they would, and they did.
That makes a lot of sense for sure. And then I know you mentioned that your first year you had to recruit some players to get them on your team. And how would you say, how was going about that process like to recruit players?
It was relatively easy because, you know, I had been in touch with Illinois Central College, the former Pekin-led Lorene Ramsey, who was the coach. And the first thing I did was go directly to Lorene, and she gave me some names. And then, of course, I knew names from my experience itself with having sent players away. I got some of my former players, and I was recommended some players by Miss Ramsey. And it was relatively pretty easy, Addie. It really was that first year. But easier than I thought it would be.
Yeah, that's for sure. Were there any particular games that kind of stood out as a highlight of your time coaching?
That first year, or
Any year.
oh, any
yeah.
year? Oh yeah, there were.
You can name all of them
Oh,
too.
there were quite a few. I really couldn't even name all of them. Most of them concerned the postseason. In 2001, I was able to coach the Letts into the national tournament, and we were actually 5th place. In fact, the Letts were 5th place a couple times. They never did win the whole thing, but my 5th place team that in 2001, I'm pretty sure that my memory serves me right there. And then there were times when I hosted the Pekin Letts women's tournament here in the park. We were able to win that championship many times, and there were quite a few exciting games.
Did you have any players that you coached throughout the years that kind of stood out to you as well? If so, what were they like?
There were a number of them. Probably the most memorable one was a high school girl that I had named, her name at that time was Priscilla Welch, and she played with the Letts, and she was one of my high school players, and I was able to mentor her both in high school and then bring her along with the Letts, which helped her going forward into college, and she became an All-American in college at Illinois State over that. And then I had another girl that had played for Bradley called Natalie Quinn, who was an All-American for Bradley. She was very, very helpful. She was from Arlington Heights. She comes to memory. And then we had a number of good pitchers that came both from Bradley and Illinois State. So there's quite a few of them.
Yeah, for sure, a lot of local players.
Correct.
That helped out. And then, what role did the community play in the success of the Pekin Letts?
Well, the first thing, Addie, was this. After I told the mayor of Pekin that I would take over the team, the first thing I did was go to Mr. Bruce Sowers, who ran Veldy Ford. He recently retired from that. His son recently retired. Bruce turned it over to his son, Tim. The first thing I did was go to Bruce Sowers, and Bruce Sowers in 1991 gave me $5,000 just to pay off a debt that had been accumulated just out of his pocket like that. Now you'd call that community support. And then he also gave me another $5,000 to run the team the next year. So I had immediately $10,000 from Veldy Ford at that time. And then going forward, there was many people that helped with community support. There were people that would buy programs into our program every year. And CEFCU has been a sponsor for us since day one. Since 1991, CEFCU has contributed to the Letts program since then, all those years. And there still is.
Yeah, so the community really did help.
The community kept everything going because the community of Pekin and actually the whole area fell in love with the Pekin Letts when they first came in, and that feeling of love never went away.
That's awesome. And then, what would you say the fan base was like at the games?
Back in the day when the Letts first came to Pekin, and the attendance record for the Amateur Softball Association still stands. There was over 125,000 fans showed up those first couple years. And the year, I believe I think Scott can help with this, I think it was 1964 they set that attendance record and went on to the national tournament. And then even when Scott was an announcer here, fans came out. They came out even right up until the end.
That's awesome. And then, how have you seen women's softball evolve over your years with the Pekin-Letts into today?
Oh boy, it's kind of what happened is kind of what happened to men's softball too. Men's softball actually was they dominated all men's sports back in the day, but it slowly died out over the years. And women's softball dominated the women's competitive scene in the country and also in the state of Illinois. But like everything, when youth softball began in Illinois in 1976, the women's level kind of faded away, pushed it down to lower levels, and until we get till right now, I wouldn't think there would be at this moment now, as you and I talk, Addie, I don't think there would be over a half a dozen women's teams in the whole country.
Yeah, it is
For
definitely.
fast pitch softball, I mean, probably a lot of slow pitch teams, which is another story.
And then, how did your role with the Pekin-Letts influence your personal life?
Dominated it. It was 12 months out of the year thing. Try to recruit the players in the winter, get names, and then begin playing, and then going on to a national tournament. It kind of dominated everything.
And then, kind of going back to a little bit to your first year here with the Letts, what vision did you have for the team?
Man, the vision I had was to make them world champs, which to this day the Pekin-Letts never did win a national title. We got, like I said, we were fifth, and I believe they had a third somewhere in there, but we never did win a title. To win a national title was really the ultimate and really the only goal.
And then, what legacy do you believe that the Pekin-Letts have left behind, tracing all the way back from the start of the team to now?
Well, actually, the story really is not ended, because I've got visions right now. I hosted, Pekin hosted, the city of Pekin hosted the women's national tournament 3 times. 2 times back in 1986 and 87 before I took over. And then I brought the national tournament here in 2003. And my goal is to do it again. Bring another national tournament here. Because I know we can revive enough teams to get enough teams to come for a further national tournament.
And then I know that you mentioned that you wanted to talk about some current updates with the team. So any specific updates you can feel free to share.
Updates. Maybe Scott will have to help me on this one. We never missed a season, so that to keep that ongoing, and the upgrades are to get enough players to keep the program going is really the goal, because they're out there. It's just a matter of trying to go out there and get them. That's the upgrade we're trying to do now. Just go get better players.
Why do you think that there's been such a decline in women's majors softball teams?
Well, the main reason, Addie, is because of the fact that everything evolves in its own way, and men's softball men started going different ways, and women's softball was such a great sport and had an identity all its own, and they played well. But like everything does evolve, and what happened was the colleges, that women began playing in college, and they were occupied that way, and some of the coaches really didn't really care for the recreational level. They wanted the women to totally devote themselves to college, but a lot of women still wanted to play, and so what happened was things just not downhill, but just to a different level, and plus high school softball kicked in also, and so it was just natural for the women's level just to go down to lower and lower ages. And so now, what we have now is the fact that the largest age groups are not the women playing, not the 18-year-olds or 16s or 14s, it's the 8s and 10s. It's way down there now. But that's just a natural evolution. And it's also had its effect on the women's pro level. The women's pro level was started out pretty good. It might have gone up well, but it just evolved into the fact that the never caught on. So it's basically about the same as it was when it first started.
Is there anything else that you'd like to share?
Only to give thanks to people like you, people like Scott Schultz, all the wonderful people that contributed to making the program what it is for the past 95 years.
Well, thank you.
You're welcome.